Day. We are way excited right here at Family Flavors of Slide, World Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Rachel Stovall. You know me from around the way. Some of y'all know me from back in the day, but most of you know me from writing political opinion at the Gazette and being your favorite community advocate, always advocating for the health and wellness of the Pikes Peak region. You know, when we say the 4th of July, sometimes we miss the point of the holiday. It wasn't just a day. This was, the end and yet the beginning of an era. So let's talk about it. The 4th of July, also known as Independence Day, has been a federal holiday in the United States since 1941. Isn't that interesting that we only made it a holiday that time, right? But the tradition of the Independence Day celebration goes back to the 18th century and the American Revolution. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence, and 2 days later, delegates from the 13 colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence, a historic document drafted by Thomas Jefferson. From 1776 to the present day, July 4th has been celebrated as the birth of American independence, with festivities ranging from fireworks, parades, and concerts to more casual family gatherings and barbecues. And that day is today. But when we look back at history, a lot of people have a hard time kind of accessing their patriotism because we have too little history besides slavery. Slavery was not our entire story during the American Revolution. We have Black heroes and heroines within the Revolution that did amazing things. I want people of all races to know this kind of hidden history and to understand, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, no matter what age you are, no matter what race you are, this American dream, this America, this United States was the birthright that was set up for you. It belongs to you. You are part of it. And July 4th, that makes it your day. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Establish justice. Ensure domestic tranquility. Provide for the common defense. Provide for the general welfare, bringing life and liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I wish they would bring back Schoolhouse Rock. I've known the preamble since I was probably 6 or 7 because they made a song out of it, and no, I'm not going to sing it today. So let's get into Black patriots of the American Revolution. I have to hit you guys up with, there were so many interesting stories, but one of the ones I liked the best was the story of William Lee. William Lee had quite the timeline. Check this out. He began the American Revolution, unfortunately, as a slave. He was purchased by George Washington in 1767 via promissory note, and he was originally assigned to housework. In 1775, William Lee travels to Washington's headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts. As valet, he manages the general's equipment. He helps him bathe and dress. He ties the ribbon around his hair each morning, and he accompanies Washington everywhere from encampments to battlefields with the specific job of protecting the man. So this is a black man who ended up becoming an integral part of America winning its freedom by keeping George Washington, our first president, alive. By war's end, Lee is famous due to his association with the victorious general. In 1799, General Washington, really President Washington, George Washington, we all know who, he uses his will to free William Lee immediately, praising his faithful services during the Revolution. Lee remains at Mount Vernon as a free man. Check this out. William Lee, one of the first heroes of the American Revolution, dies in 1811. And historians believe that he's actually buried on the grounds of Mount Vernon. One of the things we know about George Washington is that he started the war thinking one way about slavery and ended the war thinking differently about it. It was hard for him to go against the tide of the times. You know, we all know that it would take a long time before we finally get smart enough as a nation to abolish the terrible practice. But George Washington, who began the Revolutionary War being in favor of slavery, ends the Revolutionary War being against it, and uses every resource he can get away with in his day to free not only his own slaves, but others. I wonder if every day, day in, day out, and probably having his life saved more than once by a black man is what changed his mind. Perhaps someday someone will tell us. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has an entire special out that is about Black Patriots of the Revolution. I highly recommend it. It's at the History Channel on history.com. And it's also, you can grab it on Roku and some other sort of providers. So it's something that I think that you guys would like to check out. I'm going to hit you guys with another hero. Peter Salem, patriot soldier and Bunker Hill hero. Peter Salem was born into bondage in the mid-18th century in Massachusetts. He is best known for fighting alongside the Patriots during the early battles of the war, becoming a Minuteman at Lexington and Concord. Salem's owners freed him so he could remain enlisted in the Continental Army. Salem is remembered for his fighting and his heroism during the Battle of Bunker Hill, even though our side lost the conflict. Salem killed British key officer Major John Pitcairn just as he was scaling the top of the American hill and demanding that the Patriots surrender, according to history.com. He has been memorialized, Mr. Peter Salem, by John Trumbull in a painting called The Battle of Bunker Hill. So this is a little known history that comes from the American Revolutionary War. I've got one more, probably before we kind of hit a little music and come back. The 1st Rhode Island Regiment. Did you know that I lived in Rhode Island as a very, very small child? My formative years, 1 to 7, were there. We'll tell that story on another day. But the 1st Rhode Island Regiment within the Revolutionary War was formed in 1778. They just didn't have enough people. So the state's assembly decided to recruit enslaved African Americans, offering them freedom in return for their service. The 225-man regiment eventually included 140 black soldiers, the highest proportion of any Continental Army unit. Check this out, that's more than half. Now, when we think about that, we don't see regiments that look like that until literally World War II. Somebody was smart back then. After fighting in primarily northern battles, the regiment marched south, where its troops helped secure American victory at Yorktown in 1781. And all of the men, those heroes that had served Rhode Island so well, were indeed set free. All right, so I want us to kind of hit some music, some freedom music that helps us to celebrate this July 4th, and then I will tell you a few more stories. We've got some. We definitely have some. So remember, we're talking about the hidden history of black patriotism in the American Revolutionary War. You've tuned into Rachel's Roundtable here at Family Flavors and Slide, World Broadcasting Network. Let me remind you that on July 17th, we'll be slipping and sliding through Wildflower Park. Sunday, July 17th from 12 to 5 p.m. We're going to be doing it up. We're going to have such a good time. There'll be live music. There'll be refreshments, races, bounce houses and slides, and of course we will have our fabulous backpack benefit, making sure to do our best to help these kids to go into school with enough school supplies. So keep that in mind. Longinos Gonzalez, our county commissioner, will be featured as a speaker, as well as Tony Exum, the current representative for House District 17. He's term limited, and so this is one of your opportunities to get to talk with your representative from the past few years as you get to meet your new representatives moving forward. All right, so we were talking about the American Revolutionary War, what we did in separating from England, and the people who helped. Now, I have to tell you the absolute truth about this time. A black person in America, due to our enslaved status, had three choices. They could stay neutral and do nothing. They could fight for the American Revolution, or they could fight for England. And we had people, I know, everyone's shaking their head out there like, come on, Miss Rachel, they didn't fight for England. We did have some people who absolutely fought for England. They were called loyalists. And you know, history has a way of, kind of, the ones who win write the history. So I wanted you to know that too, because people always have choices, and you can certainly understand to a certain extent fighting for the British. I'm not saying I like it, I'm not saying I would do it, but I can understand how somebody else would do it because they were indeed promised freedom for doing so. But back to our American heroes. I want to bring you a woman. Are you surprised? Yes. There may be a few of you history buffs who have heard of Phyllis Wheatley, patriot and abolition poet. So if you remember your black history, you'll recall that Phyllis Wheatley's experience as an enslaved black woman was extremely rare. Her white owners educated her, as well as encouraging her literary pursuits into the ancient classics and biblical theology. She was amazingly educated for any woman of the day, as we were having a hard time with, the sorts of things we had back in the 1700s, and we were not particularly in favor of women being educated. I'm so glad we've outgrown those things. So at the age of 20, Phyllis Wheatley, who had been captured in West Africa as a child, became the first black person and only the third woman to publish a book of poetry in the colonies. She was freed shortly after her book was released. The messages in Phyllis Wheatley's work were anti-slavery, and so abolitionists of all races adopted her words as a rallying cry, reports History.com. One such example is, remember, Christians, Negroes, black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train. Indeed, we all can join goodness, can't we? Phyllis Wheatley also promoted independence from the crown and wrote a poem in support of George Washington's Revolutionary War, titled To His Excellency, George Washington. Washington, who still had not freed his slaves yet, appreciated Phyllis Wheatley's support and talent. And he invited her to meet him, saying he would be happy to see a person so favored by the muses, according to History.com. So that is something for you to check out. Remember the name Phyllis Wheatley. I like this next story. Oh, I like this next story. It's got intrigue. Yes. It's about a spy. Mr. James Lafayette was born into slavery in Virginia in 1748. He was assigned as a manservant to William Armstead Jr. when they both were children. He learns to read and write in English and French. In 1775, he ends up beginning to think about joining the Continental Army, but it doesn't come together yet. In 1781, James Lafayette, with his master's permission, joins the Continental Forces under the Marquis de Lafayette. Sound familiar? Wait till you see the connection. As a spy, he poses as an enslaved man who had run away to intercept British intelligence, first from Benedict Arnold. Boo. You all may remember that Benedict Arnold was a loyalist who committed treason. I mean, I don't know, we weren't a country yet, so I would just have to say he betrayed the United States. But James Lafayette later pulls intel from General Cornwallis. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Yes, because this ended up being one of the major battles. Before the Battle of Yorktown, where the Americans finally pull out the win, James provides crucial details of British troop movements. In 1783, the Virginia Assembly frees certain enslaved men who directly fought for the American cause. James was not freed because he was considered a spy, not a soldier. This was unfortunate. But what he did next is amazing. James petitions the newly formed legislature for his freedom. 1787, a letter of support from the Marquis de Lafayette from our French allies helps James secure his liberty. He takes the surname Lafayette in tribute. 1818, as a veteran, James Lafayette begins collecting a pension. He lives on a 40-acre farm in Virginia with his family. Looks like he got his 40 acres and a mule. Yup. So in 1824, this dude lived a long time, right? I thought this was so cool. During the Marquis de Lafayette's tour of America, the Frenchman reportedly recognizes his former spy in a crowd and embraces him. All right, I've got another one. Salem Poor. He was born into bondage in the late 1740s in Massachusetts. He purchased his freedom 2 decades later. He enlisted in the Continental Army's several times, and he fought in the battles of Saratoga, Monmouth, and Bunker Hills. Salem Poor is most famous for his heroism during the Battle of Bunker Hill in 1775. If you're remembering that we lost that battle, you're right. We talked about that earlier. However, the Patriots killed many redcoats during this battle, which encouraged them to keep fighting until we finally brought home the entire win at Yorktown. Poor reportedly killed British Lieutenant Colonel James Abercrombie and quite a few other British soldiers. After the war ended, 14 of Poor's fellow soldiers lauded his excellent battle skills. They acknowledged his heroism with a petition to the General Court of Massachusetts, writing that Poor was a brave and gallant soldier who behaved like an experienced officer. Last one. There is a Patriots of Descent monument. I encourage you to Google it and look at it. It's beautiful. It is a granite block with carved text and a bronze bas-relief. The bronze relief depicts 3 soldiers of African descent, one facing left, one facing right, and one in the middle facing straight ahead. The men all wear military uniforms, each holding a musket. The 3 soldiers depicted in the bronze relief look well disciplined and proud. On the back of the monument, another reaffirms why the monument is there with the words, "In honor of the Patriots of African descent, who served, suffered, and sacrificed during the Valley Forge encampment of 1777 through 1778. There's also a quote by Charles L. Blockson, the founder of the Blockson Collection of African American Historical Documents at Temple University. Throughout these historic and hallowed campsites were courageous Black patriots who participated in our nation's bitter fight for independence." I want to end the show with this. We have gone through many battles as a nation. Likely we will go through many more battles as a nation. But there have always been Black patriots who fight for our freedom. And there will always be Black patriots who fight alongside people of all races for freedom. And as we learn and understand more about what freedom is, and we become mature enough as a nation to make sure to extend that to all groups and not just some, as we understand how to unfold equality in all of the forms that it should take, Black patriots will always be there. Often leading, showing excellence, and fighting for the nation that belongs to all of us. On this 4th of July, let's honor everyone of every race, and let's all do the best that we can do to be the best patriots that we can. Being a patriot doesn't mean that you turn your mind off. Being a patriot doesn't mean that you agree with everything. But fundamental love of your country means that you fight figuratively. And for those in the military service, you veterans, thank you for your service. I thank the future vets as well. You bring your fight to make this nation better and to expand the freedom that this nation was founded upon, to make sure that freedom is for everyone. Because freedom isn't free, and it's always going to take a fight. That's it for Rachel's Roundtable. It was such a pleasure to be here and share with you. I look forward to catching up with you soon and just talking with you about a variety of subjects and things we have. We'll probably go back to our usual interview format next week. Have a happy 4th of July and a fantastic Independence Day.